Okay, welcome back. This is June 22nd. We're going to go over and take a look at the S&P 500. Had a couple of days where I didn't do the pre-market or post-market videos. Had a lot of things going on and family in town, so a lot happening around here. So let's just kind of get caught back up a bit. So we had this really big run down overnight on Sunday, I believe when that was, and came all the way down here to this right here at 2675. And not really anything that I would say was real significant down there, but for whatever reason, the buyers stepped in and that seemed to do it. And since then, it's kind of been this one way up kind of story, and it is what it is. And we'll just kind of go with whatever the market's giving us. It's what we talk about pretty much every morning. And we just say, let's just go with what the market gives us. So if we go back and we look here at today, we've had when all of this originally happened and we had this initial breakdown and said this 3250 area was going to be pretty important. So last week or whenever that started happening, said that 3250 area was going to be pretty important. So here we had, let me just show you what we talked about in map just so you can see. So right here, so I was yelling a little bit. Just so you have it, this was at 639, '06 quarter, and '09. Okay, and what we talked about was that it wasn't that the buyers were still definitely in charge, but it was very, very possible that we could see some pullback, and then they didn't take out basically this Globex low, and so that Globex low ended up holding, but we could have also seen some pullback, and we're still not at all out of the woods for some bigger pullback. So we'll talk about that a little bit, but I really want to talk about a little bit of today. So initially, this first push that got to 0875, and we said '09, so there was 0875, and then a pretty nice push up into here. But you notice how there's these right here, these three CPs and then these two CPs. And there's not a ton of room. I mean, yeah, so it came down here, came back up here. Not a ton of room in between them. So this area, this 2150 down into here, I'd expect that to be a fairly, you know, kind of a big area where we're gonna see a lot of consolidation, and we saw that, you know, basically we had a little bit of a probe up here overnight, but came right back down through it, probe down below here, and overall basically stayed inside of this range that they've been trading inside of. So I don't think I'm going to get rid of what I highlighted here. I think I highlighted it too perfectly. Okay, so we're gonna we'll leave that on there for now. Actually, maybe we can. Nope. Okay. So we will basically this area initially right out of the gate I'd be thinking kind of some of this sideways that we saw here that kind of played out. We came down here. We said '06 quarter. It came to '0575, which matched the Globex low. So just two ticks. And then ended up coming back up through this, came back up through here. We said they'd need to take out, again, notice this, we have these three prediction points fairly close here. So not a huge surprise that this consolidation sort of played out. They came right back through it. We got some consolidation here. We said they'd need to break out up above here. When it came up here, it didn't exactly look like it was a hard rejection and some kind of a sell-off. So it looked like consolidating and then another move higher. So let me show you what I did. I highlighted these areas. What you're going to see highlighted on the chart here, this big area, I'm not entirely sure. I think this came off of a 4-hour chart. So this was an area of supply that I marked as a potential area for, where the market might run into to some supply, but not really for trying to sell it or anything. It's been a one way up kind of market. We're definitely favoring buying for sure. I talked this morning about that we could possibly play it for some pullback down to here, but when this came down and held, and then it was just sort of one way off to the races from there. So, but there was some opportunity there, about 10 points or so. So Obviously, overall here, what made sense is sticking with buy side, this consolidated. This darker area is just in this darker shaded area. This came off of a 10-minute chart. So basically we have a supply zone, a supply area, and then a supply area that's a little bit more dialed in inside of that. And this happens really often where you see this, where the market pulls back into this supply area. And it also is really good because it's kind of confirmed over here. So we've got this selling off back into here. It didn't quite make it up to here. This is 46.50. Didn't quite make it to there. Got to 45.50. But you could see we have a bit more room up here to that 53.25. So I think there's still some more. We got some more room to run. And I just want to make sure. Let's just talk a little bit about tomorrow. So we'll load tomorrow's prediction points on here, and then let's just put 20 days on the chart and go back and look. I just want to make sure on this contract. Okay, so the all-time high on this contract is 58.25. So if we go back and we look right here, this is just a 5-minute chart. So I'm going to give you a little bit of a glimpse into some of the things that I'm looking at outside of, I mean, I'm using prediction points, I'm looking at that kind of stuff. I don't really see anything here. I mean, this is really kind of this area right here. I mean, it's not even, whoop, that's not what I'm trying to do. It's not even really great by any means. I mean, it's just something that's there. Kind of correlates with that. This is probably a pretty decent area. That probe down here was 45.75. So it looks like, you know, we had this, remember when this broke down here and then they came back up and they tried? This was definitely an area of supply and they tried here 3 times. So I didn't expect that this was going to be anything real major, but did, you know, I mean, it's just, it traded through this area so much. So didn't expect anything too major in there. When we came back up into here, so then I don't really see anything. Again, I just don't see anything that's too, uh, you know, as far as what's going to really stop this on the way up here. So let's take one more peek and go zoom in right here, coming off of these all-time highs. But I can tell you right now that all the traders that I talk with, when we saw this happening off of the high, we said, okay, that's not, they're definitely not done. That's not really a top. It's just, you know, temporary, and we'll see some selling off of that maybe, but, you know, fairly temporary. I don't see a lot here between this, you know, this 46.50, 49 area. That's really the best kind of thing you can see. And it did get a nice acceleration out of this price, but that's pretty much it. There's nothing really in here that looks like it's going to stop anything from moving up in the bigger picture. I've been somewhat skeptical about the move up, just my own, you know, really my own personal bias, which I try to keep out of the way of things. But from what I can see on the chart, there just doesn't really seem to be anything in the way there. So obviously, this was a consolidation area today. We saw that play out. This was a consolidation area. We saw that play out overnight. This was a consolidation area. We saw all that play out. Finally got to push up into here, consolidate. And then what we didn't do, this would be a congestion, and we would expect it to run to the checkpoint, which would be there. And we didn't get that. So it kind of stalled out there. So now let's go look at tomorrow's prediction points. Okay, so here's tomorrow. So we have 43. And notice how this story kind of stays the same, but 42.60 up here. And that would be a new all-time high. That's the CP. So we have these areas highlighted, but then 65 and then 80 and then, I mean, so we'll see how strong it really gets. The thing is that we're getting, let me just make a case for something else here, which is just some of the things that concern me. We had on this move up. Now, generally, I would want to come back and test something like this. So you see that right here. So if we go right there, I would want to come back and test that typically. We just haven't had, if you look, I mean, the pullback has been so shallow. And this was kind of the first area of demand right here. And that was all we could get yesterday was back into that first area of demand. Even an area like this should be a pretty important, I mean, like you're generally going to see a break out of that and you want to see them come back and test into this area. And we haven't gotten that. And so that's a little bit concerning that, how far can this keep going before this is an area that really needs to be tested before we can really establish that things are going to definitely move higher. Um, and so it just make it a lot cleaner, makes it a lot easier to trade if we could get even something like this just get tested. I mean, that'd be a good start. But we're just not getting that. So we're getting these, I mean, even like this, this kind of stalls out right here. We'd want to see a move and come back and test it. And we're just not getting that. So at some point, the caution is that we will get that retest, that we will get those bigger retests of the things that we haven't been getting the retest of. And as of right now, buyers look to be definitely in control. And then, I mean, you can see there's a lot going on here. And there's a lot more room to move higher if they can start to move things up more. So just that's really I mean, something like this should be kind of really what I would think of as a no-brainer that we're going to come back here and test something like this and pick up whatever demand would be right there. And we just haven't been getting even those really basic retracements. I mean, like this, a move up into here, you'd think that would be enough to get you back into here, and normally you would get that. And so I start getting a little bit cautious. I'll trade it. I'll trade for these moves, but I really want to see a test to come back into these areas like that. So we'll see how this plays out over the next couple of days. I don't have a crystal ball. I just have a lot of hours in front of the chart, and at some point we're going to see a retest back here to this 1950, and we're going to see a retest back down here to this 93, and there's room lower that we could go retest. But this is, I mean, at a minimum, it just seems kind of crazy not to come back and retest this. So the higher this moves up, I would say I'm not necessarily looking to short it, but when I do see a top get put in, that's a thing that I definitely try to pay attention to and look for. And when I do see a top that gets put in, I'll be looking for a move down into some of these levels. So, and in the meantime, if it does come back into those levels, I'll be looking to buy them for another move back up higher. And I just want to be flexible and give take what the market's going to give there. So anyway, a little bit longer today, but I just kind of wanted to give you an idea of some of the, kind of where we are and kind of catch things up. I'll be back here in the morning doing the pre-market video. Hope everyone had a good weekend, good Father's Day, and we'll see you in the morning. Thanks for being here today. We'll see you in the morning for the pre-market walkthrough.